this song before? I have. It's really good. Now, let's go ahead and pause the music. Okay, now, today's day in history is the day Johann Sebastian Bach dedicated 6 concertos to the Margraves Christian Ludwig of Brandenburg. Now, when I chose this day in history, I was really excited because I really liked the Brandenburg concertos. I played them in middle school. I listened to them. They're on my playlist. And I'm like, cool. I never expected to find what I found. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But the big idea for this day in history is it's a good idea to save a copy of your work. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now, we are in Germany. We're in a little place called Schwert. If I studied German, I would know. I think one of you guys knows some German. You can tell me how to pronounce it. So, now, we need to talk about the Baroque period because this is a pretty interesting period in history. It goes from about 1600 to about 1750, and it's a time period filled with just grand, extravagant, pretty just over-the-top architecture, art, and stuff like that. This picture here, this is an example of Baroque architecture. It is, well, it's pretty amazing. Let's see, let's take a look at the next slide. Now, mansions like this are also very common of the Baroque period. These are just way over the top places to live. Can you imagine if you had even a family of like 5 or 6? That would be a pretty quiet place, but they had plenty of rooms. So let's talk a little bit about Baroque music now. Now, Baroque music has a few fairly popular and well-known composers. One of them is who we're talking about today, which is Bach. We also have Handel, who's very famous, Vivaldi, one of my favorites by far, and also Pachelbel. These 4 are some of the most well-known Baroque composers. I'm sure there's quite a few more that people listen to, but these are the 4 that I chose. All right. Now, we're going to take a little side route here because I found out something fairly interesting. Now, this is a harpsichord, and let's play some harpsichord music. Have you guys heard this before? It's kind of got a twangy sort of sound to it. And it was what people wrote a lot of music for. And we'll turn it down now. You guys can play harpsichord music on your own when you get bored. Now, harpsichord made it really easy to play the notes, but some musicians kind of got frustrated because you couldn't really change how soft it was, how loud it was. It was difficult to change the volume. It pretty much didn't give artists and musicians, thank you for the laugh from my wife back there, yes, I can speak, it didn't give them enough control over the sounds they were making. And during Bach's time was actually when the piano was invented. The piano was invented around the year 1700, and it changed music dramatically because it gave musicians a lot more control over their music. So not only did the Baroque period provide all this amazing architecture and art and music, but it also helped produce the piano, primarily because a lot of the music these musicians started writing, these composers started writing, was really intricate. It was really technical. It took a lot of talent to play. So, let's see. I believe I have a piece of music here to play. Let's see if you recognize it. Now, this is on my playlist. It is also something that we heard during the talent show. Remember the 2 violins? That was Bach. And, wait, I like this part. Ready? Here we go. Yeah, Bach's really good. Okay, turn it off. You can listen to this song again if you want later. But that's a really good example of how technical and how much skill it would take a musician to play this music. Okay, let's see what we got next. Next slide. We're going to talk about Bach. So, Bach was born in the year 1685, and he died in the year 1750. He was born in a little town called, I'm probably going to mispronounce it, Eisenach. I think that's how you say it. And he grew up in a family of musicians. Now, his family was actually very well known for creating music, for teaching music. They were, some sites I went to said that if you said Bach in this time period, it was kind of another way of saying music. They were that popular. So, next slide. Now, Bach grew up in a very religious family. His music was heavily influenced by religion, and it's often said that each time that he played a piece of music, or wrote a piece of music, it was his way of praying, which I could kind of see that. I mean, his music was just absolutely amazing. I get the chills when I listen to it half the time, so I could see how it was part of his religion. All right, let's go to the next slide. Now, Bach got many different jobs. He got jobs as a church musician, writing music, teaching music. It was his life. It was his family's life. Now, something that we probably recognize, because we did do a day in history on this. Let's hear the music. Ready? This is Bach. You might not know that, but it's one of his most famous pieces. This is on a pipe organ, one of those huge organs. Wait, my arms went out. Huge organs. Now, this was really made popular by Fantasia when Walt Disney did that in the mid-1900s. Now, another part that you might recognize that I really like, and I just want to play real quick, which is the next song. I really like this part. And this shows how Bach took the skill of the player or the musician into account. And we'll turn it down. But he wrote very, very intricate technical work, which I find amazing. Okay, let's keep going. Here we go. Now, let's get to the story of how popular Bach actually is. Because if we look at this chart, the three top performers, or the three top composers that are played by orchestras are Beethoven, Mozart, and then Bach. So Bach is up there in the top three. And if I had to rate my three favorite composers, it would probably be Beethoven, Vivaldi, and Bach. But Mozart's pretty good. So, okay, next slide. Here we go. Now, let's talk about the Brandenburg Concertos, though, because that's what this day in history is about. And this is where I came across the most amazing information. I had just assumed that the Brandenburg Concertos were written just like his other ones, and they were put out there, and then people listened to them, and they liked them because they're really good. I think they're really good. And I assumed that, but when I did more research, here is what I found. And here's why they're actually called the Brandenburg Concerto. Now, this castle you see right here, this is the Brandenburg family house. And at the time, Bach was working in a different job. And Bach said, my job's not going so hot. I'm going to send out some letters to other nobles to see if I can get a job. Now, one of the places he sent these letters to was the Brandenburg family. Let's go to the next slide. Now, this is Christian Ludwig. Now, Christian Ludwig was, he was living at Brandenburg, and he received what would today be considered a job application from Bach. And what Bach did is he wrote a letter that really complimented Christian Ludwig and how great he was and how much he'd love to work for him. But he also sent 6 concertos as an example of his work. And those 6 concertos were the Brandenburg Concertos. Now here's where it gets crazy. those were the original copies, and there were no copies made. That's what blew my mind. So what happened was Ludwig got these 6 original copies, or excuse me, original Brandenburg concertos that nobody else had really ever seen. He decides not to hire Bach. He takes those concertos and he sticks them pretty much in a drawer with other papers, and they disappear. Now, I had assumed that when Bach wrote these concertos, he just played them and everybody listened to them and it was great. That's not the case. And so what happened is this. This guy here, Philipp Spitta, was a German music historian that actually realized and found these Brandenburg concertos in the mid-1800s and published them. And that's when they came out and became really popular. And I was just fascinated by this because I had assumed, like I've said many times, that they had always been around, but they were almost lost. Can you imagine if the person that had the job to take care of all the extra papers at the Brandenburg Castle decided to use those things to, I don't know, wrap up fish for a picnic, or to start a fire because nobody needed those papers anymore, or to let the Brandenburg kids fold them into, I don't know, boxes or something? Who knows? Okay, they could have even used them as toilet paper. I don't know. But they didn't. And we have 6 of the most amazing concertos, in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, that represent music of the Baroque period. Okay, now, this is just a quick look at one of Bach's Brandenburg concertos, the music. And for those of you that know how to read music, you can see how intricate he wrote. And if you've ever played stuff by Bach, raise your hand if you play stuff by Bach. Yeah. Oh, I've heard you play something by Bach. Yeah, okay. See, I told you. Now, Bach is pretty popular. Now, he's so popular that there are things called Bach festivals where people all come together and they all listen to Bach, and that's all they listen to. It's pretty awesome. One of these days, I'd like to go to a Bach festival. So, today's day in history is the day that these 6 concertos were sent to the Brandenburg Castle, and it's very good that they filed them correctly.